This is Cover Your Ears with Brian Geller. Unlocking the secrets of the music industry.
The numbers all go to 11.
You're about to get the inside scoop from the industry insiders.
You go with the Van Halen tickets.
You never know what you're going to hear on Cover Your Ears.
Now raise your goblet of rock.
Happy New Year's, everyone, and welcome to the first episode of 2017. This is Cover Your Ears, and you're listening to episode number 12 here in Southern California. I'm coming to you from Ultimate Ears, and I'm your host, Brian Geller. The Atomic Punks had a great New Year's Eve gig, and, well, we're ready for a busy month of January. Not only is NAMM just a few short weeks away, but the band is booked all month throughout both Southern and Northern California, but also one of our favorite gigs at the Speaking Rock in El Paso, Texas. So keep your eyes out for those and future shows at the Atomic Punks Facebook and Twitter page, as well as www.theatomicpunks.com. This episode of Cover Your Ears is brought to you by Ultimate Ears Pro, setting the standard for custom in-ear monitors for more than 20 years. I've been using Ultimate Ears in-ear monitors for over 6 years now, and please know that they are the real deal. What started out for me as a tool to save my voice has helped prevent hearing loss and given me the tools to be a better vocalist. Ultimate Ears changed everything. To learn more, visit pro.ultimateears.com. Today's guest is forever the new guy in the band KIX. Well, I guess he's hardly new. Bass player Mark Schenker and I spent some good times hanging out together on the Monsters of Rock cruise. This past October, we talked a lot about KIX, obviously, but we also touched on the newly released KIX documentary, as well as his growing role in the band, how lucky he was to see Led Zeppelin live, and his little side project, a Rush tribute band. Okay, we're here with Mark Schenker of KIX, man. This is so cool to have you. One of the best bands year after year on Monsters of Rock. The energy, everything you guys bring on stage. I mean, are you still having fun with it?
Oh yeah, I mean I'm forever the new guy. So I've been in the band 13 years, but those guys have. They say that they're having more fun than they've ever had doing this KIX
It
thing.
looks like it.
Yeah, and for me, walking into an already established band that had, some big records and stuff and a really reputation as a pretty heavy live band that was pretty tough to beat. So it was nice to, just sort of walk in and go, not have to really work your ass off for 20 years to get to this one point.
Right.
It's like, hey, wow, this is great. These guys are already, amazing musicians, and I get to play with them, So it was kind of like taking your kid to Disney World, so to speak.
So the first time I saw you guys, we opened for you at the pre-Monsters of Rock cruise. I think that was the first year.
It was awesome.
And it was like a great night. And
you guys were awesome.
Oh, thank you.
It was great.
Thank you.
So great.
But what I remembered is, it's like, wow, these guys just aren't mailing it in. They're not just standing there all in their places and playing these tunes that, did so well years ago. There's some choreography going on there.
Yeah.
What was that like when you first came in?
Well, I had seen KIX a million times, so I knew that, like we always do the little bunny hop and girl money and drop at the end of this song and that song. But, so I knew that there was, certain things that they did, and they were just like, it was really sort of matter of fact. It's like, oh, hey, at the end of Red Light, Green Light, we all drop. And it's like, okay. And, of course, there have been those shows where, I'm thinking, the crowd goes crazy and I'm standing and I'm looking around and everybody else is down on their knees. I'm like, oh no, I missed it. It doesn't happen too much anymore, but you feel really stupid.
Did you have to buy the band a beer after that?
No. We're actually a band of pretty much non-drinkers, and Brian and Ronnie have been sober for quite some time, and I haven't drank since probably 94, 95.
Oh, good for you guys.
Yeah. I never had a problem. I just chose not to, but we're not. But I will tell you this, watching you guys today, that made me want to do a shot of Jack.
And I have to tell you, it's very rare that I'll do a shot of Jack, but boy, the crowd was into it. It was fun.
And it was just so fun. I got caught up in it, and I was like, yes, a shot of Jack. That's a stupendous idea.
Even Mike Tramp came up and did a shot, too.
Yeah, I saw it. Wow, that was great. That was great. I was standing
cool.
right in the middle. I was like, yes, I want to do all that stuff. You know,
I got to tell you, though.
I have a horrible headache, so I can't do it.
Oh, that heartburn after that shot.
Yeah.
Oh, my God. It was not fun. It sure looks cool, though, I bet.
Yes.
So,
yes.
That's
and
great.
then, of course, there's that whole, I know Mike mentioned it briefly, the whole Van Halen myth about the iced tea.
Right,
you
right.
know? And Mike was like, hey, it's not iced tea.
And he was just in here. We had a real fun talk, and he had some amazing stories about his wife was David Lee Roth's one of Roth's first costume designers.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh,
so
wow, I didn't know that.
So some interesting little tidbits.
Yeah, Dave
there.
was a trendsetter, and so if she was a part of that, I mean, that's amazing.
Right?
You know? Yeah, that's really cool.
So tell me about when KIX when they put it together and they came back and because I've heard stories like Steve hadn't done it for so long and there seemed to be some interest out there.
Yeah, we were playing in Funny Money every weekend. It was we just play around the DC, Maryland, Virginia area. You know, anything longer than 3 hours of a drive was not worth our time, and so we would play half KIX songs and half Funny Money songs. And Steve and I wrote a couple records together with Funny Money. And Steve wrote a couple records before I joined the band by himself that he released with the previous members of Funny Money. We got Jimmy in the band for the 2 albums that I worked on with Steve. And so we were a regular thing. So Steve and Jimmy and I were tight, and we were, friendly and got to know each other and stuff. And what ended up happening is Ronnie's band started warming up for Funny Money. And at the end of the night, Ronnie would get up and play 3 KIX songs, and the place would go absolutely apeshit. And so we started going, hey, this is fun. We should do this more often, And then so I think what happened was a promoter who owned a pretty good-sized club in Baltimore at the time called Thunderdome put in a call to Brian, got a hold of him out in L.A. and said, hey, would you be interested in doing this? And Brian was like, well, maybe for this amount of money, and if Donnie's not involved, I'll do it.
Really?
Yeah. So it was sort of like it was a very tentative, everybody was, because they had never done, KIX without Donnie, of course, and Ronnie and Donnie actually started the band together, so it was their sort of band. So there were some mixed feelings about, we don't want that guy around. I mean, not for me, I was just the butler with the cloth waiting and the bass. They sort of had a little bit of apprehension, who cares? Who cares about a band that hasn't played together in, 8 years, that only sold, 4 million records or whatever, they sort of underestimated how much their fan base missed them and loved them. And so we started out doing it just, 3 times a year. We would do the KIXmas reunion show or whatever we were calling it at the time. I don't recall what it was, but that was around 2002, 2003, I think, something like that, 2002. And then we had, we just kept doing those a little bit more every year, maybe 5 times and maybe 8 times. And then this booking agent, Sullivan Big, Sullivan, right?
Mm-hmm, sure.
So Big Time Entertainment, Los Angeles, he had gotten a hold of Brian somehow. And Brian called me up one day and said, hey, there's this booking agent, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, oh, man, you want me to start working on Steve about that,
So you were the one that had to work on Steve.
Well, because I was, Steve and I saw each other every weekend, And so I talked to Steve about it a little bit. Because Steve, he didn't really want to leave his couch and get on a bus. To him, this Weekend Warrior thing really hadn't quite evolved the way it has evolved for us these days, for all of our bands,
right.
And so it was sort of like, their mindset was just tour, get in a bus. I'm not getting in a bus ever again, that was it.
Right.
Sullivan had already been doing this Weekend Warrior thing with Great White and had a lot of success with it. And he said, hey, you don't have to do... you just fly out, you go home, and...
Say hi to all the musicians on Friday and say hello to them when you come back Sunday, because everybody's doing the same thing.
Right. Attaboys all the way around, like I say. And so Sullivan had a lot of conversations with Steve. We finally talked him into doing Rocklahoma. So we got an offer to do Rocklahoma, and we went out there in 2008, and we hadn't, we were talking about the in-ear monitor rig that we travel with, and Jimmy and I hadn't quite scaled it down. Jimmy and I are kind of the techs of the band,
right?
And we hadn't quite scaled it down where it was, because all we had to do was carry it a couple hours away. We didn't have to mobilize it for airplane travel or anything, right? So we hadn't scaled it down quite enough so Jimmy and I actually drove with our sound man from Maryland to Oklahoma to do that gig with our in-ear monitor rig in the back and some of Jimmy's, triggers and whatnot. But
what was that like for you, man, doing Rocklahoma? I actually did Rocklahoma. It might have been that year or the year before with my old Van Halen band. We played on one of the side stages.
Oh, yeah.
And
yeah. Was it the year where the storm was? Is that the one you did? Was it after that?
It might have been the year after.
Yeah, we did the one where they had the big storm and a couple people got hurt and one of the stages blew over. But that was the one where it was right when that storm quit. We started to play, and it started to rain again. And there was probably 30,000, 40,000 people there. Nobody left. It was one of those magic moments that you hopefully get to experience more than once in your life as a player, as a musician. And it was just absolutely insane. The crowd was crazy.
I bet.
The wings of both sides of the stage were lined up with all the other bands who were watching us, and we had a good night. We played, really well that night. And we came off stage, and I remember Steve was like, "Okay, I get it now." And so that was what opened the... Yes, exactly. That's right. I'm in, I get it. And that's sort of what opened the floodgates for us, because, like I said, they'd had enough of that stuff. No more tour buses, no more, driving 8 hours to play a gig and drive home, that sort of thing. So,
and I always think of Steve too when I'm doing my vocal exercises, because I remember that night in Florida, and was it Miami or Fort Lauderdale? Fort Lauderdale. Mm-hmm. And we're a tribute band. It's like we're playing with the big boy bands, is what I call, right? And we're the tribute band, so there's like a little pressure on us. And I remember just kind of just being to myself, doing my thing, getting ready. And I was looking at Steve, and I'm like, oh man, he's not only is he doing his vocal exercises, but he's doing them into a towel.
That's so he doesn't annoy us. Because he's so loud. He is so loud. I mean, you can't...
And my wife is sitting here on the bed. I was doing that today, thinking of Steve. I'm singing into a towel.
Yeah, he is so... I remember the first couple of times that there's a couple spots in different songs where we go up and sing together. And, I have my in-ear monitors in, and he's blowing away my mix. Because he's standing right next to we're sharing a mic, singing the part in sax or whatever song it is. And he's just so... he'll make your teeth rattle standing next to you when he's singing. It's really astonishing that tiny little man can blow out that much wind and rattle the windows,
He's amazing. We went to the show in the theater. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, and every time I see him, I'm like, okay, I need to do that move. I need to grab that move. I want that one and that one. It's just... there's so much that he's doing.
Yeah.
It's almost like he's a harder rock version of Rod Stewart. Now, who have you liked on the cruise thus far?
Well, Atomic Punks were killer.
Oh, well, thank you.
But I've known Joe for a little while, so I really admire the and actually I'm in a Rush tribute band. So
is that right? I didn't know that.
So I'm all about the tribute bands. So. You
need to meet up with Scott. We have our own Rush tribute too.
I knew that, and it's Lance too, right?
Lance does it, and then Scott, our drummer, who's amazing, and we have a guy that does the Geddy Lee part. And, and actually, his name is Jared. And the funny thing, when I got into the whole Van Halen thing years ago, the first band I ultimately joined was Jared's original band that he was in. He was the bass player in that Van Halen band. So it's kind of funny all these things kind of come back around.
Yeah.
So besides the Atomic Punks.
Well, I would say, I've seen Richie Kotzen a couple times with his solo band. And Winery Dogs are on the same label that we are. So I had heard rumblings about them when the first album came out through our label people. And it was like, oh, we got these guys. And I was like, Richie Kotzen, wasn't he that guy in Poison, And I'm sure Richie
Right.
hates to hear that,
Exactly.
But it's part of his past, and that was actually probably the best Poison record.
Let's go back, way back. Let's talk about when you started. I mean, who was influential to you, and as far as getting into music? Did you have a musical family?
I had, not particularly, but my parents were very much into letting me do whatever I was interested in. So my father was military. He was in Vietnam, and he was a 25-year Army guy. So he retired full-bird colonel.
So did you travel
all over
lot?
the world. I lived in Europe, and that's actually how I got into music, really, because as a military brat, you move around a lot, and you have to figure out how to make new friends very quickly. Oftentimes you're coming in the middle of the school year. Everybody's got their cliques figured out, and you're the new kid with the goofy hair or something, or with glasses, or whatever it is.
Right.
And so the thing that always worked for me was, putting on a KISS shirt or, a Rush t-shirt or something. And you say, hey, I'm a rock kid. You know what I mean?
Right.
So
you're going to grab somebody.
Somebody's going to gravitate towards you, And so when I was 16 years old, we had moved 16 times. And so trying to make friends was, it was a skill you just had to figure out. You just had to find somewhere so you wouldn't get your ass kicked at lunch every day. The new kid, So they were really good about letting me just go off and do whatever I was interested in, reading and art. I mean, I don't want to sound like one of those artsy kids, but I was very into rock and roll. I was very into reading books. I was very into watching, like Jacques Cousteau and stuff like that. Very into science. And when I started getting into music, I always had records when I was a kid, and they would always buy me records and let me stay up and watch like the Johnny Cash show and the Bobby Goldsboro Hour and all those 70s variety TV shows that were that we just don't have that anymore, unfortunately. And so they would always make sure that I got to watch that stuff, and so they were very encouraging. Even my father, being the military guy, when are you going to cut that hair, he always encouraged me to, hey, you're interested in this? Okay, we'll go do it. Let's go check it out and see if you really are interested in it. So when I lived in Germany, I went to my first concert, which was Jethro Tull. And the second concert I went to, I was hanging out with an older kid who my father worked for. He went to a lot of concerts. He knew a lot about music already, so he was like turning me on to like Black Sabbath and ZZ Top, bands I had never heard of, because I was into Zeppelin and Boston, stuff that was easily accessible for a 13, 14-year-old kid, So I actually got to go see Led Zeppelin on the In Through the Outdoor tour.
Wow.
So I was at the second to last show that they ever did before, of course, the O2 Arena. So they played Berlin, or they played Munich, which is where I saw them, and they played Berlin, and then Bonham died 3 months later. And so
what memory stands out from that concert?
I'll tell you, that was the thing that made me go. And I remember this one particular thing, and you can actually find clips of this concert, this exact concert, on YouTube. They started out with Train Kept A-Rollin'. It was because when they were the New Yardbirds touring Europe, that's the song they opened up with. So they opened up with Train Kept A-Rollin', and I remember people were going, why are they playing an Aerosmith song? And I'm like, that's not Aerosmith. You guys are idiots, And I hear this 13-year-old, 14-year-old kid. I think I was 15,
everybody.
actually. Yeah, I think I was 15. So, but I remember,
which a true rocker would have been like, yes, this
exactly.
is great.
I knew. But I remember that his strap came off of his guitar, and his guitar went down to the stage, and it went wrong, and he kept playing, and he just looked over at his roadie, and it was looking side to side, and the guy came out and put the strap back on, and he just stood up and kept playing, and he just kept playing through the whole thing. And for a kid, that's the most amazing thing I had ever seen at that point in my life, During that tour, it's been documented that Bonham wasn't feeling so good, so they had Simon Kirke from Bad Company come out and play 3 songs. They set up another drum kit, they took a break, because they didn't know if Bonham was like passing out or whatever. I forget exactly what was wrong with him, but probably just exhausted from drinking too much.
Yeah, he was John Bonham.
Yeah, exactly right. So, but I remember they brought Simon Kirke out, and I knew who he was because I had read all the liner notes on all the Bad Company records. And they did a couple songs, and that's when I decided that I wanted to learn how to play, because I thought I could probably do that. I don't know if I'll be good at it, but that sure looks like a whole fuck of a lot of fun.
Right. So
that was that moment when I saw Led Zeppelin, and I thought to myself, that would be, that I could do that,
And there's not a lot of people out there that got to see Led Zeppelin.
No, not that. I mean, like I said, I was real young. I was 15, and it was the 1980 tour, and it was, In Through the Outdoor. And
so that was your second concert?
That was my
after
second
Jethro
concert
Tull.
after Jethro Tull. Yeah, Jethro Tull was great. I was totally into them, but that didn't make me want to go play. I think maybe I was probably a year. It was probably a year before that.
I don't know, man. I think I got
you.
you beat. Greg Kinn band at Magic Mountain might have been a little bit better.
You know what? I got one that's a little bit better than that. You're gonna love this one. So when I was in 6th grade, I had a babysitter that took all the kids that she babysat to see the Jackson 5 at a local theater in the Round.
Really?
But at the time, I was like, oh, it's the guy that does Ben, and ABC 1, 2, 3,
Ben.
because they were just, it was still the Jackson 5.
Right.
But Greg Kinn band that's awesome. We're really reaching deep here and showing our age, aren't
and
we?
it was and a little trivia on that was at Magic Mountain, they did the Kiss movie there and everything.
Oh, yes,
right?
yes.
That was there.
Oh,
But also,
God, yes.
But also, the place where the Greg Kinn band played was the same spot where Spinal Tap was playing, where on the marquee it said Puppet Show and Spinal Tap.
That's
same place.
That is so great. That is awesome.
It's perfect, right?
That is perfect, because we all have that fear, right? It's like,
oh my gosh.
walking up to the venue, it's like, God, our name's not really that. There's no posters up. We're not even on the venue,
We'll show up to a gig and there'll be another Van Halen tribute band poster on the side there.
Really?
That's happened before.
I've seen a couple other Van Halen tribute bands, and I have to tell you, I think that you guys sound the best and sound the most like Van Halen and look the coolest.
Oh, thank you.
Because the Van Halen look is huge.
Yeah, it's a fine,
you gotta
fine
have
line.
If you don't have those Dave moves down, forget it. You're just a cover band. You're not a tribute band. There's a difference between a cover band and a tribute band. And of course, I learned this getting into this Rush tribute band. I didn't know there was this whole tribute world. One of the things that always cracks me up is...
You should take my online course of being in a tribute band.
Where do I sign up?
So,
do you have your credit card swiper with you?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. It's doing the Van Halen thing. It's, people want to see, do they have a Dave and do they have an Eddie? Are those, you got to have those two parts. And for a lot of the people that we play in front of, they weren't around. They didn't see Eddie and Dave and the band back in the day. And understand that David Lee Roth back in the day was numero uno.
He was king.
He was the king.
Nobody could touch him. Nobody.
So when I go out and try to do some of the shtick, it's like you kind of have to pick your spots. Now, if I come out and I'm like 110% Dave all the time, a lot of people just don't get it. And then it comes across that you're trying too hard, so you got to kind of pick your moments here and there, because no one's showing up to our gig and going and is confused. Oh, is this Van Halen or not? Did we just stumble in and they're not it's just So it's like we just try to just do it right. The guys in the band are amazing. They've been doing it for so long. And
the drummer's awesome. That guy that was the thing that I could tell the difference, because Alex is all brass. It's those Van Halen records are
right.
That'll make your head sizzle if you listen to them all day long. And your guy's got the fills, man. He is just has that real
you
nice.
Hear him
power.
do the Rush.
Oh yeah,
you guys should get together.
I didn't know it was
man.
the same guy. I didn't know.
Yeah.
I knew Lance was in it, but I didn't know it was the same guy. But
we've done nights where it's the Punks headline, and then we've got Motley Inc. will open, which is all three of the guys, but with a different singer.
Yeah,
and then we've done it too, where it's Motley and us, as well as the Sammy Hagar version band. We have a guy that does Sammy. Actually, he was the first guy that actually played with Quiet Riot when Frankie got the band back together.
Oh, really? Oh, okay.
So we've done it where it's three bands in one night. I don't think we ever did it where it was all four bands in one night.
Oh, that'd be so fun.
Scott's just like, 2 is enough.
Yeah.
It's killing him. Just killing him.
He's great, though, man. That guy. And I remember when I saw you guys in Lauderdale, I was really paying close attention to Lance and you, because like you said, you got to have a Dave, you got to have an Eddie. And I was like, wow, those guys are fantastic, you know. So I didn't really get a chance to absorb Joe and and what's his name, the drummer?
Scott.
And Joe and Scott. I didn't really get a chance to absorb them, but today I did, and I was like, holy crap, that's a killer rhythm section. I mean, he is a very powerful drummer, and I enjoyed the hell out of that.
We appreciate it. Thank you, man. It's good. It's good time. I mean, an honor for us to be on the ship with, you know, all these bands. And
everybody loves you guys, man. All the other bands, it's like, oh, you got to go see Atomic Punks. You got to go see Atomic Punks. Like in my mind, there just isn't any other Van Halen tribute band. You know, I mean, I couldn't. And I've seen a couple other ones, and I've seen some bad ones, you know, and it's like, you know, you get a Van Halen tribute band with 2 guitar players. It's like, come on, man.
That's a little tough.
Or the guy's playing like a PRS semi-hollow body or whatever. You know what I mean? It's like,
well, like I said, the week isn't complete unless there's another Van Halen tribute band that's been born.
Yeah.
So they just pop up all the time.
But I mean, you guys have been around so long and have such that reputation. It would be really tough for somebody else to bust through that and sort of knock you off as king of the hill. You know what I mean? And then, of course, you know, playing bass live is just, you know, again, you have your own space. There's not 2 guitar players fighting for that same sonic area. You're in charge of the groove with the drummer, and you know. And I quickly learned. You know, we had when we were touring this one band I was in, we had rotating drummers. We had the Spinal Tap drummer syndrome. So I think we had 11 drummers in 2 years.
He died in a horrible gardening accident.
We left him with the fireworks people. You know? And so I had a couple drummers that really ruined my time. It was kind of an eye-opening experience to play with drummers who are not as good as guys who are, you know, real good. You know, I play with a really good drummer and feel like I'm in the pocket, and then you play with a guy who's all over the place. He's coming out of his fills early, and it just made me miserable. You know, I was like, this is not, you know, I'm not playing good music here. I'm not being a good musician. I'm not moving forward. I'm not learning anything. This guy's killing me. We got to get rid of this guy. And of course, you know, everybody else knew that, and it was a couple of guys. It was more than one, because it takes more than one to sort of wake you up in that area. But for me, it was certainly, you know, I can't play with a guy who's coming out of his fills early. You know, I can't do it. It drives me crazy.
Right.
Know? And, you know, fortunately, you know, I'm playing with one of the best drummers
you don't have to
there
worry
is.
about
I don't have to worry
now.
about that with Jimmy. I know he knows where the one is, and it's going to be the same one as I'm on. You know what I mean?
So tell me what KIX song we're going to play right now and listen to.
You know, there's a song that that I heard walking around the ship that Taylor Rhodes and I wrote. Taylor Rhodes produced our last record and wrote "Crying" with Aerosmith and wrote Celine Dion's first #1 hit, and it's off of "Rock Your Face Off." And Taylor and I did it kind of as just an add-on to see if the guys would like it, you know. And it's called "Rollin' in Honey."
All right, let's check it out.
My baby, keep me up all night. Oh, there's a girl I know with a reputation, one you'll never believe. She's got all the boys in a regular
Dude, that was amazing. Love it, love it, love it. Love me some KIX. I can't wait to be playing again with you guys.
Yeah, I hope we could do a lot more shows together. I mean, that's a really good combination. You know, two high energy, fun bands. I mean, we should just be playing a lot more together. We really should.
It would be fun. A lot of fun.
Yeah.
So tell me the latest with KIX. I hear we've got a cool documentary coming up.
Yeah, when we were doing Rock Your Face Off, you know, it was the first record for those guys for 19 years, and I was fortunate enough to be a part of it, and big part of the writing, and you know, I engineered the record and recorded the record at my studio.
So that's great. I mean, you're not the one of the original guys, but you had your hand in so much of the writing and. Right? I mean, it's your band too now.
Yeah, I mean, sure. Yeah, I you know, I feel, you know, I feel that a little bit, but more what I feel is that you know, I feel like it's sort of my job to, you know, let everybody see how great those other four guys are, you know, and you know, doing a new record and you know, writing cool songs and creating an area for them to be showcased in. And being a part of moving that forward, I feel like that's what really makes me happy with being a part of KIX. And you know, yes, at this point it is somewhat my band too, but you know, the more important thing to me is to, you know, show these guys off to the world. You know, what can I do to help expose them to more people so more people can see how truly great they are? You know, that's what I really feel when we talk about, you know, me being a part of KIX and doing this new record. And so when we were doing the record, we had a couple of filmmaker guys that Brian knew that lived out where I do in Virginia, and they had gotten in touch with Brian and said, you know, hey, do you mind if we come film you guys? And Brian was like, you know, hey, do you mind if these guys come to your house and film? And I was like, no, that'd be great. We'll have, you know, because I'm always thinking forward, you know, how are we going to promote this record? What are we going to do? How are we going to make it work? And you know, I'm a really hard worker like that. And so my first thought was, great, now I don't have to film YouTube clips of us recording on my phone and edit them and put them up on YouTube or give them to the label to put up on YouTube. So I thought, great, now that's one thing I don't have to worry about. So that was my first thought, was that, that we would have clips to help promote the record when it came out of us goofing off in the studio. You know? That was it. That was all I thought of at the time, and I put it out of my mind. And so these two guys, Dale Jackson and Stephen Narangas, came around, and they kept coming around, and we were mixing, and Taylor and I were working on songs, and Taylor and I were mixing, and Brian was doing guitar tracks, and they would show up and film for a little bit, and they would just leave, you know, and I didn't really, you know, I was so busy with other things and working on the record and working with the label and everything that I didn't really have time to pay attention to exactly what it is that they were doing, other than I knew we had good YouTube clips.
Right.
So when the time finally came about to look at this stuff, you know, the filmmaker Stephen had put together some clips and sent them to me, and I thought to myself, wow, you know, there might actually be a story to be told here. You know, this is the first time that KIX is doing a record without their primary songwriter in, you know, however many years it's been, 19 years, whatever it is, and by the time we were reviewing these clips, the album had already been #1 on Amazon for a month. It had, you know, the only KIX album that ever did better on the Billboard charts was Blow My Fuse. You know, it went straight up on the Billboard chart, and it was just a fantastic success. And I'm thinking to myself that, you know, people might really actually be interested in hearing how this story came about, because those guys happened to be there from the beginning when we were recording. And so, talking to the filmmaker, I said, you know, I think that we can make a story. I think there's a story that needs to be told here that, you know, KIX fans would be interested in. Maybe just casual KIX fans would be interested in. Maybe just music fans would be interested in, you know. I mean, it's never about, you know, making any money. It's just about creating something cool that, you know, because I would want to see that on Van Halen or Rush.
Right.
You know, Rush did that Beyond the Lightest Stage, which was fantastic for me, and there really hasn't been that definitive Van Halen film yet, you know.
Right.
You know, I'd like to see a film like that about Soundgarden or something, you know. And so we decided to redo all the clips and put them in a chronological order and tell a story. And so I was sort of acting as like the executive producer, saying, you know, this is going to work, this is working, and maybe not. And then finally we had something that was about an hour and a half, hour 45 minutes long. And I kept pestering our general manager at the label, Madeline Scarpella, to watch it. And I kept sending her the link. I'm like, Madeline, you got to watch this. And she's like dealing with the Winery Dogs and Leonard Skinner. And she's like, oh, you know, I'll watch your YouTube clips later, you know. And she finally watched it, and thank God she did, because she was all over me. She was like,
Really?
This is great. We need to make this. She was like, I'm taking over as executive producer. You're relieved of duty. And what is the filmmaker's email and phone number? And I'll take it from here. Thank you very much.
Just like that.
Just like that. And so she set up a bunch of... there was a lot of good, I don't know how to say this, a lot of our peers really liked the record and thought it was astonishing that KIX could put out a record of that quality after this much time without their primary songwriter.
Right.
And actually have a record that charted for real, you know. And they're just good rock songs, you know. I mean, they really are good rock songs. And so somebody, I forget who, I think it was either Madeline, it was probably Madeline, had the idea to get, you know, some testimonials from people about the new record, you know, to put in the film. And so we got Nuno Betancourt, we got, you know, Eddie Trunk is a no-brainer. He's a big KIX fan, and he's always great on film, you know, he's a pro. And we got Lizzie Hale, who's actually from Hailstorm. She was
Great
actually
singer.
Steve's vocal student. Did you know that?
Is that right?
Steve taught her when she was 16. And
Wow.
she's in the film talking about everything she learned from Steve Whiteman, and, you know, talk about the new record. And, oh, God, there's so many great people in the film that, you know, besides all the studio footage and us talking about it. And so it's a DVD CD combo pack. It comes out October 21st. You can pre-order it on Amazon. If this podcast comes out before then, they can pre-order it. If you hear it after October 21st,
it's out there.
Get it on Amazon. You can also order an autograph copy from Newberry Comics. All of us have signed it, and the booklet inside has a contribution from each guy. Brian's a doodler, an artist, and he did a cartoon of all the KIX guys, and Ronnie did a gear rundown, and Jimmy's actually a trained chef. After KIX broke up, he went to chef school, so Jimmy's an amazing cook, and he wrote out his favorite recipe in there. And Steve wrote his workout routine. We were just talking earlier about staying in shape, you know. Right. And I wrote an essay about the whole project. So
that's great.
So yeah, it turned out really good. We're really proud of it, and it's one of those things where you know, I like the creative process of, you know, the intention is to do this one thing, and you just keep getting ideas, and you're surrounded with other people that have good ideas, and then all of a sudden it turns into this thing that you didn't even imagine to begin with, you know. So that's kind of how it evolved, and I'm just really pleased with it. And I hope the fans will enjoy, will pick it up and enjoy it.
I think it'll be great if it's anything like how you guys perform and how cool you guys all are. I'm sure it's going to be amazing.
Yeah, we're proud of it. We hope it does well. So, and we hope we don't care how it sells. We just hope that the fans that do buy it love it. That's what we really hope, you know.
So talk to me about in-ear monitors. That's another thing.
Monitors.
That's another thing that brought us together, as well as the bands and stuff. But Ultimate Ears.
Ultimate Ears, yeah, absolutely. So my I mentioned earlier I was a military brat. My father was in Vietnam, and his area of specialty was field artillery. So, you know, back in those days, they didn't have OSHA running around putting earmuffs on guys, right? And handing out earplugs and stuff. And so my father's severely hearing disabled, and it is, as I've gotten older and as I got more into music, I realized that he always had trouble hearing things, you know, and he knew he was hearing disabled. He had hearing aids when I was, you know, in my 20s and stuff. And, but, you know, it got worse and worse and worse, and it was, you could tell he was really struggling with it, and it got very profoundly sad for me. You know, we would be on a plane somewhere. He and I traveled together occasionally and go do father-son stuff, fortunately, and he couldn't hear the captain's announcements, and it made me so sad. It just tore me up. You know, he would just be reading a book, and he would be like, "What? I didn't hear it. You know, what are you talking about? You know, you just can't hear anything that above that certain frequency. You know." And so when I first started playing music, I remembered that that he, I had thought about it. I thought, wow, it's really loud up on stage, playing in these little, bar bands. And so I started wearing the foam earplugs that you couldn't just go to the store and buy them back then. You would have to go buy them from like an auto parts store for machinists. They were the same foam things, same exact things, but you couldn't go to CVS and get them, So I would go to the auto parts store and buy machinist earplugs and wear them. And all the other guys in every band I've ever been in were like, oh, you and your earplugs, you're such a pussy. I'm like, yeah, we'll see. We'll see when, we're 60 years old and I can still hear and you can't,
Right.
And so with that whole thing with my father and, understanding where where his hearing loss came from and just... I could not imagine not being able to hear music, because music is obviously such a big part of me. And that would just be so I had this sort of, so it was based out of fear a little bit, it's like, what can I do to still enjoy myself playing music and protect my hearing so that when I'm old and my hands maybe don't work anymore and I can't play music, I can at least listen to it,
Right.
So I wore earplugs forever, always wore earplugs. Then there was, I think maybe it was Westone was one of the early, and they had...
Early ones.
Yeah. And so that was the first set that I ever got, and they were molded, and they didn't sound great, but they were still, it was still a 20 dB cut, and that's more what I was interested in. So I plugged into a very early wireless pack and just had my vocal in there, and that was pretty much it, because nobody else in the band... It was with Funny Money.
Okay.
With Steve and Jimmy, and those guys didn't have in-ears yet. Steve was still wearing one earplug and had a wedge, and the wedge was luckily pointed away from me. So I had started bringing my own gear to the gigs and wiring everything up, and hey Jimmy, can I put can I run a mic through a splitter and get a kick and maybe some snare happening and Steve's vocal, and so I got those guys to finally give in, and we bought a Crest audio board that was specific. And this was like the dawn of in-ear monitors, And we bought a board that was specifically for in-ear mixing, and it sounded horrible, but it was all that was out there,
Right.
It sounded horrible compared to now, but then we were like, oh my God, this is great. We don't have gig ring after those guys in particular were like, I can think the next day, And then we had found out somehow about Ultimate Ears. And I don't remember I don't remember exactly how. I mean, I'm always reading stuff and looking in the magazines and looking for new stuff. I'm a real gearhead and tweaker, and I'm always fiddling with things and buying plugins and Pro Tools junk and recording gear and stuff. So I always keep my eye out for something that's interesting that makes music more fun or in this case, safer,
Right.
And it's more fun to perform when you can hear yourself, And so somehow we got hooked up with Ultimate Ears, and I had bought the UE7s when the UE7s were top of the line. That was it. That was all they had. Jimmy and Steve still had the squishy Westone molded ones. And Jimmy somehow ripped his. And he was like, okay, what are the ones that you have again? And I was like, here's the website, go on. And back then we ordered them through Guitar Center, and you'd send your molds into Guitar Center.
Right.
And
Old school stuff there.
Yeah, it was a while ago. It was probably, like I said, it was probably 9 years ago now. At least 9 years ago, maybe 10. I probably saw the receipt. Jimmy got foamed again and got I think he bought UE5s. Because he was still sort of...
And the fives are a little low in, and...
Yeah, but he was sort of like, these are okay. It's better than losing my hearing, but... Because, talking about the old Westone or whatever, I don't want to trash them, but they were whatever they were not nearly as good as the UEs.
So in your Rush tribute, you're doing the full Geddy Lee thing?
Yeah, I'm singing keyboard,
keys
bass,
too.
Everything. Yeah,
good
man.
For you. That's fun.
It's tough. It's the hardest thing I ever had to do musically, but it's and the guys in the Rush tribute, they also bought Ultimate Ears.
Great.
So because they were, the drummer wasn't playing with a click, and they're actually like one of the more popular Rush tributes. So I'm coming in replacing two guys.
What's the name of the band?
The band's called Blame Canada.
Blame Canada.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, Blame Canada for Rush.
Right.
Haha.
Right.
So, but the big East Coast Rush trib is Lotus Land out of Massachusetts, and they're fantastic. But they're not straight up they delve it, like they'll start playing Roundabout, and they'll play maybe a Genesis song, and we're like, if it's,
how dare they?
Yeah,
Don't
exactly.
They get the rules.
Exactly.
They didn't buy my course.
Don't get me wrong, they're great. Yeah, they didn't. They need a refresher course from you. So those guys I play with are hardcore. Rush tribute. It has to be this way. The guy's kit looks exactly like Neil's. I'm playing a jazz bass.
You
and I'm
can't
playing
be wearing
Rick's.
those pants. He didn't wear those pants
exactly.
on that tour. How dare you?
Exactly. We're not doing the robes.
We're
skipping the robes.
No kimonos, huh?
But I got those guys into the UEs, and they're just like, oh my god, and particularly the guitar player, because he's using one of those Axe Effects rigs, so he's hearing stereo guitar for the first time in his life, and he can't get over himself. He's like, hey, were you guys any good? I was just listening to me,
Right. So as we wrap this up, I got one question to ask.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I ask everybody. This is part of my one staple thing on each show is
cool.
Let's talk Desert Island albums. Let's pretend like you've got a turntable with power and you're on the desert island and you can only bring 3 albums with you.
3, not
just
10?
3. No, just 3.
I mean, Moving Pictures is, without question, was a life changer for me as a young musician and somebody who actually wanted to aspire to be good. Not just go up there and pick up girls and drink beer. I thought that it would be really fun to be really good someday.
Right.
I'm not saying that I am. Someday I'll still
pretty
be good,
man.
So Moving Pictures was one of those albums that came along at the right time when I was interested in being a technically much better player, and so that I could not live without that record.
That was my introduction to Rush.
Yeah.
I mean,
I had been listening to him before that, and I was really into Rush before that, but when that record hit, and I had started to play music at the same time, around that same time, 15, 16, and then it was like, holy crap, this stuff is, this is the way to learn how to really be a real musician. This is the path to musical enlightenment, But that's one, and I think probably Physical Graffiti, even though that's a double disc.
That's a good way to
count
cheat
that
the
as
system.
one.
We'll give that to you.
But it's a whole album.
You saw Led
man.
Zeppelin, so we've got to give that to you.
Yeah, and I think that the way that album ebbs and flows. You've got the Wonton song, you've got In My Time of Dying, you've got all this slide stuff, you got Kashmir, you have this real heavy stuff, and you have some acoustic stuff, and it really shows the breadth and power of Led Zeppelin.
And it's a double album.
Right. And I think, let's see, my third album, I think I might have to bring, I'd probably have to pull Who's Next would be it. That would be, being from the Geddy Lee school, Ant Whistle's up there for me.
Oh,
and
right.
so I'd have to pull Who's Next. I mean, he's just phenomenal on that record.
Those old videos of him playing.
Yeah. It'd be, I wouldn't pull Quadrophenia on you because that's also a double, and I'd be taking 2 doubles with
I might
me.
have to put in a rule for future guests, right?
Right. So Who's Next would be me for sure. But that's for me, that's the best Who record, and the songs are all there, and Daltrey is at his best, and Ant Whistle's just a monster on that record. So those, I could
3 good picks.
Yeah, I could live out my days listening to those 3 records for sure on a desert island.
Okay, so plug away. Where can everybody find you? Find KIX, school, all the stuff, the Rush Band, everything.
Yeah, KIX is KIXBand.com. Follow us on Instagram at KIX the Band. Twitter, we're just KIX Band. Facebook, it's official KIX. We have a pretty active fan group on Facebook, just called KIX Fans. Just knock on the door, they'll let you in. There's, I think, 6,000 members in there right now.
Perfect.
We do pretty well with that. The new documentary comes out October 21st. It's called Can't Stop the Show, The Return of KIX. It's a CD-DVD combo pack. Pre-order on Amazon or get it after it comes out. Get an autographed copy at Newbury Comics. Follow me on Instagram. My Instagram is at Mark Schenker, and it's more of my adventures that I do. I'm a scuba diver and sort of an adventure traveler. I'm actually a dive instructor, and I'm an underwater photographer. So I do a lot of underwater photography on my Instagram. So I keep that try to keep that my hobby more so than just, hey, look at me hanging out with the guys from Atomic Punks, So, look where I am, So I try to keep it sort of, but that's sort of my pride and joy of my Instagram. I really put a lot of effort into taking photographs and traveling places and finding interesting things to photograph. And please follow me on Instagram. I love it when people get to see the world through my eyes. So I really like it when people follow Instagram and pay attention to what I'm doing outside of KIX. So and then the Rush Band will be out. I played a couple gigs with them partially, and we're doing our first gigs in December. Who knows? We might be on the Monsters Rock Cruise next time.
That would be fun.
Yeah.
Mark, thanks for coming by and
thanks for having
hanging
me,
out,
man.
dude. This was so much fun.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thanks so much.
And hopefully, you guys will be on the cruise. You guys always are. We missed, I think, one.
Yeah, I think we're missing the next one.
I don't know if we're on the next one.
We're missing the one in February, but then we're on the one after that already. So
see, they book you guys. We're like, I don't know if we're last minute band.
I don't know, man.
I don't know, man.
I've heard rumblings that Atomic Punks have to be there. That's
I hope
what
so.
People say that. They do. And I've heard that from agents. It's like, oh, you got to have, these guys have to be on these cruises, man. It's just, there's no other band that does what they do, so.
Mark, you're hired. Thanks again, man, for coming in. This
right
was
on.
fun.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Thanks for listening to this week's Cover Your Ears podcast. I hope you enjoyed the show, and I tell you, if you have not seen this band KIX, they come to you from out of nowhere. They've got a lot of energy, so don't miss Mark and the boys. I've seen them now 3 times on the Monsters of Rock cruises, and they deliver every single time. Nobody has that kind of energy. Also, make sure and check out the KIX documentary, which is out now. Cover Your Ears is brought to you by Heil Sound. Heil is all about that perfect sounding microphone, and it just so happens they've been doing it for quite some time. 50 years of rock. So be a part of it. Anybody that's been around that long is definitely for real. Check out their website at www.heilsound.com. Check for brand new episodes of Cover Your Ears each and every Tuesday. I'd love to hear your feedback too. You can contact me with any comments, suggestions, or questions at briangellervo@gmail.com. And if you like the podcast, please make sure and leave a review wherever you may have found Cover Your Ears. And do a guy a favor, tell a friend. Oh, and if you have something interesting to say and you're in the business, let me know. It could just make for a fun show. See you next week.